Yes, thank you. I guess that you have had a chance already of listening to some of the foreign ministers, if not all. You know that the Foreign Affairs Council today had in agenda different points on urgencies and crises in our region. You also know that the crisis in Ukraine as such was not an official point of our agenda, as we had our extraordinary Foreign Affairs Council meeting 10 days ago, where we had decided already to increase the level of pressure for the political efforts and to increase the political efforts of the European Union for getting to an implementation of the Minsk agreements. And we have used these 10 days, as you know, to follow up our decisions and to deliver on these decisions, in particular on the additional names to the list. In the last days, in these last 10 days, as you know, there have been new political initiatives in line with what we had decided at the Foreign Affairs Council 10 days ago. In these days, we have discussed, coordinated on these initiatives with the four actors of the Normandy format, with Germany, with France, with Ukraine, with President Poroshenko directly several times in these days, and with Russia itself. You know, I have had a bilateral meeting with Lavrov in Munich in these days. And I've already had the chance of expressing something that unites us and has united us all in these months and still in these days, that we all believe that the solution to the crisis in Ukraine can only be a political one. So we endorse today, with the foreign ministers, all efforts done in these hours in view of a new meeting on Wednesday to reach finally an implementation at full of the Minsk agreements. Today, as I said, the point was not formally on the agenda, but we are politicians. We deal with what is on the political agenda, being flexible enough to adapt our discussions to what is needed at the moment. And we discussed and adopted the list of additional names of 19 individuals and 9 entities that would be subject to asset freeze and visa ban, as it was decided to be followed up in our last meeting 10 days ago. In order to give space for our diplomatic efforts in these hours to be developed with the maximum of chances for success, we decided unanimously, united, to put the entry into force of the measures on hold until Monday 16th, as we believe it is our duty to give this attempt that we are doing a chance. Then we will have, obviously, the opportunity to assess the developments, first of all on the ground, but also the developments of this initiative on Thursday with the heads of state and governments. We have been consistent in our decisions, timely and united, and we count on continuing to do so for the future. We discussed and decided also on some other issues that are of major concern for our region, starting from Libya, where we have decided, you probably read already the conclusions, we have decided to give all our not only political but also concrete support to the small but encouraging steps of dialogue, internal dialogue, that the UN is leading. Good news is that apparently this dialogue has some chances of involving all sides. So we know that the situation is and is going to stay fragile, but the European Union has some instruments, together with the Member States, to encourage and to protect this dialogue in its further steps, to try and prevent the situation to get out of control completely in Libya. We have to give strength to the outcome of these fragile talks with all means, and this means in particular to look at the ways in which we can support the confidence building measures that have been discussed and might be implemented in the future. We have also discussed and approved conclusions on Yemen. That is a situation that worries us a lot and that requires from us today, in these hours where the UN is resuming inclusive talks, a strong political message of attention to say that the framework provided by the GCC initiative has to remain a point of reference. And we discussed and approved a series of measures and of conclusions also on other crisis areas, in particular related to Africa, that we will discuss also further on in March. And we adopted conclusions that were following up our discussion in January on counterterrorism, how the European Union external action can implement the internal measures that were discussed and decided by interior ministers. Just and Home Affairs Foreign Ministerial was held in Riga at the end of January. So we decided a set of concrete actions and initiatives to be taken immediately by the European Union and together with member states, in particular to strengthen and increase the cooperation activities with some key countries in the Middle East, in the Arab world, in North Africa, in Sahel and in the Gulf, to work on our diplomatic activities more to try to solve the open crisis starting from the Middle East conflict, Palestine, that, as you know, was the center of our work yesterday with the Quartet principles, and to work in particular on prevention and on information exchange with key countries like Turkey or Saudi Arabia in our efforts to prevent and contrast terrorism from the external action side. It is an ambitious plan. You might want to look at the conclusions in detail to look at all the measures that will constitute a substantial input into the discussion that the heads of state and government will have on this later in the week on Thursday. Obviously, it's an ambitious plan that will need to be implemented, I hope, very coherently and quickly. And on this, we will obviously need the cooperation not only of all the European Union institutions, but also of member states that are very much aware of the fact that this is and has to stay a priority of our not only internal and security action, but also our diplomatic and foreign policy. I would stop here and take a couple of questions. I'm sorry to say that malheureusement, our time is not too much tonight because I have another news to give. Probably you have read that already. Tonight we are restarting the Serbia-Kosovo dialogue. So I will have to leave to meet the two prime ministers and to make them meet, I guess for the first time. That is going to be something very important, an exercise that the European Union is facilitating, has been facilitating rather successfully in these years, and that I intend to continue to facilitate in the future. So I hope that tonight it will be on a positive note that we can conclude this day of activities with an important meeting that is going to take place in less than half an hour.